So
if you want to go second, then we'll capture it on the record. Community Board 1.
Good morning. This is Tammy Meltzer, Chair for Community Board 1.
Community Board 2.
Good morning, Rosie. It's Carter
Alexa,
Booth,
turn
Chair
off.
of Community Board 2.
Community Board 3.
good morning, Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Thank you. Community Board 4. Community Board 5.
Good morning, it's Vicky Barbero, CB5.
Community Board 6.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kyle Athied, Chair of CB6.
Community Board 7.
Stephen Brown, Chair.
Community Board 8.
Morning, it's Russell Squire, Chair of Community Board 8.
Community Board 9. Community Board 10.
Good morning, everyone. Cicely Harris, Chair of Community Board 10.
Community Board 11.
Good morning, everyone. Xavier Santiago, Vice Chair of Community Board 11.
Community Board 12. Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda for today's meeting of February 18th, 2021?
moved.
Do
Second.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
abstaining? Anyone against? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion or any amendments to the minutes of January 21st, 2021?
I believe I have to abstain because I wasn't present. I was only there for the vote. Larissa was there for the bulk of the meeting.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Vicky. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tammy. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. CB3 abstaining. Anybody else abstaining? Anyone voting against? The ayes have it. Okay, we are moving now into the presentation of the budget by Vanessa Diaz-Lopez, the Director of Budget and Capital Projects here at the Manhattan Borough President's Office. Vanessa, I turn it over to you now.
I'm going to be sharing my screen. As everyone knows, we're going into fiscal year 2022, and everything is being colored by COVID. So the impact of financial impact, fiscal impact of the pandemic is impacting how we are able to put together a budget that would restore the levels of service, certainly not necessarily increase. So the preliminary budget was announced January 16 by the mayor, and it is a $92.28 billion. And we have a gap, a projected gap of $5.25 billion. That is, sorry, how do I go back? My apologies. Mainly because we've had tax revenue decrease by $10.5 billion in the last, from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 22. And also we had a unexpected spending amounting to $5.9 billion So the combination of declined revenue and property taxes, which results is directly impact the direct impact from COVID, then amounts to $5.25 billion. So while there has been increase in some people tax revenues increase, we still have a $5.25 billion deficit. So how the mayor put that was the rich got richer, if you've seen this. So the state announced a 2-year budget gap totaling $15 billion. And of course, that's going to have impacts on the city budget. That would be a $3.5 billion deficit in the current fiscal year and $6.5 billion in fiscal year 22 projected. That also might mean an additional $4 billion specifically for New York City in cuts. And so part of the way that the governor has proposed to address those cuts has been by do savings is by cutting school aid and local aid to district funding adjustments. So whatever amount of money is sent to the localities to do a reduction of that. Reducing the Medicaid rates, how much is paid, because there were savings during the pandemic. I found that very interesting, that there were lower healthcare utilization. So the rates paid out were lower than usual. So there's some reductions there. That's a saving. There's also an attempt to reduce the amount that the cash disbursement is going to be to the city and localities by 5%. In fact, the city is awaiting payment from the state for a number of programs. And then obviously there's a savings plan that already is in place from the state where they cut 10% of the operational budgets for state agencies. Similarly, the city has done that as well. You probably heard this in the news, where a number of mayoral employees have been furloughed for at least a week. So some of the issues that, some of the issues that are included in the preliminary budget that are historically important to the community boards and the Office of the Borough President. You know, there is funding for continued test and trace corps so that we can continue to do testing. There's a New York vaccine campaign. So they allocated $200 million. The interesting part is that this is in fiscal year 21. The projection for fiscal year 22 is not evident in the preliminary budget. There's allocation of funding for Wi-Fi in shelters. There's a $14 million allocation for fiscal year 21 and $3 million for fiscal year 22. Our office has been very involved in looking at the issue of Wi-Fi in schools, in learning devices that have been given to students for remote learning, and also in shelters. It is unclear how this money how would they decide which shelters and whether this is sufficient to meet the need of what we've learned is needed in shelters. The administration is also looking to bring all students back. You know that, you've seen that in the news, in person to schools and teachers back to school as early as next week, I believe, or this week. But certainly in the fall of next year, there is an intent to have everybody in school. And they are looking to allocate $35 million to support students, social emotional support as a result of being at home for so long and the deaths and just the historic moment that we are in. So $35 million for social emotional support. Unclear how much of that might be for what we have been calling for a number of years to add additional social workers. And we're trying to find that data so that they could be more transparent. They did put summer youth employment funding, 132,000. That restores 70,000 slots. And the intention is to have the youth be in person so that this year they would be able to actually be at locations face to face. But they're also looking to have some hybrid opportunities. That's still being decided what that looks like. Both of those things have been called for by all community boards in the past. Funding for learning bridges. Everybody has their opinion about whether this worked or did not work, but there is $62 million left in fiscal year 21. For that, unclear if they're going to be putting any funding in fiscal year 22 for that. Not evident right now in the plan. Food, as you know, the city has spent a lot of money trying to make sure that people get food. And so there is funding only in fiscal year 21 and not clear in fiscal year 22 yet. The good news with capital funding, if everything goes well, is that there is a plan to focus on affordable housing. And I know that that is important to a number of community boards. I think everybody, some more than others, but mention it in your needs assessments. So affordable housing is supposed to be one of the focuses of the capital plan, and also capital funding for impact on climate change and severe weather. Okay, so the mayor is proposing to close the gap, the 5.25 billion gap, by putting a 1.3 billion PEG, which is not new. Last year, he did the same. And so the intention is there's been already 7,000 headcount decrease in 7,000 in city employees. And there is a projection of an additional 5,000 employees, and that's a saving of 349,000 million in fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. You already know all city agencies have been asked to find savings, and there's been a number of savings from that. This is additional savings that are needed. There is an attrition and hiring rule. You can only hire someone if 3 people are gone. So 3 people retire or leave or in any way, you can hire 1. The strategy is also to advocate for federal stimulus funding to localities. There are some concerns about the funding going directly to the state, and then whether language allows for that money to go there, specifies that money has to go to the city. So there is concerns about monies that might be going directly to the state, but might not trickle down to us for the control of the city on how to go about it. There is also a $2.2 billion savings citywide, but they're unspecified, and they are across fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. The additional savings that are being proposed are labor savings. The administration has been talking to the unions and the labor sector to try to delay payments on that were already agreed on. And the concern is that those agreements are at this point for fiscal year 22, unclear what would happen in the upcoming fiscal years 23, 24, and 25. So that may result in may or may not result in additional need to cut city employee headcount. The other plan is to have FEMA money and for everything that is FEMA eligible for COVID expenses. And so things that are not eligible are FEMA ineligible include the costs related to school reopening, non-delivery of food programs, social services at the hotel shelters, which we have some of them, test and trace corps, and overtime for personnel. So that's some of those things are part of what we need, right? We need test and trace corps, we need testing and so on. So there's some concern about that. However, we did learn that Originally, the FEMA reimbursement was going to be at 75%, and now we know that it will be at 100%. So that's good news, because some of the money that we were having to use towards covering that other 25% of the eligible cost is now freed up to be able to put towards other purposes. And so just like last year, I thought it would be interesting to go over some figures that I think the community board and our office cares about, issues that we have advocated in the past that are included in the savings plan. And so, for example, the Department of Youth and Community Development will, in fiscal year 22, there is no money allocated for the Sonic Summer Program. And that's a saving of $5.73 million. And I know that that is, there's been a lot of advocacy around that, along with the summer youth employment. At this point, there is no money allocated for that. The Department of Education has some savings by eliminating procession rates and that are paid in addition to the salaries of the DOE staffers and teachers. So this one's in red. It was, I left it in red because originally on January 16, part of the intent was to delay 3K expansion and to reduce fair student funding to schools. And I wanted to leave it on because I thought it's kudos to everybody who advocated, and thank God that we got the 100% FEMA coverage. So the mayor decided to use that money to then not have to delay the 3K expansion and to not have to reduce the fair student funding. I do think we need to keep an eye on this to see what happens as we move forward, but I know education is important to all of us and wanted to make sure to bring up that this was originally something that was planned. For CUNY, the savings are really all of the different programs that support students to be able to be there and do well, stay in school and be able to do what they need to do. So Apple Corps, and if you look at it, it's not really that huge, but it is huge for that, for CUNY and those students who might not be able to get the service. So there are service reductions, basically. They're not completely eliminating any of the programs, but we do know already that it has never been enough money to actually be able to meet the demand. And there's a hiring and attrition, it's the savings of $19.6 million. I don't know what that means in terms of headcount, but we do know that, you know, when we are addressed by CUNY students in lobby days or in that sort of stuff, we do know that there are not enough professors to be able to do the work and get people graduating and so on. There's also a DCLA. There is a reduction for the New York City Cultural Plan, and it seems like it's not going to be moving forward in fiscal year 22. What are the plans on continuing that work? For sanitation, I know that it is important to many of us. To the organics collection is not projected to continue, and that's a saving of $18.6 million. That's in fiscal year 22. The mechanical street sweeping will be only once a week for savings, and that's $1.3 million. For DOT, I know there's a bunch of you who care a lot about cycling and that, you know, open spaces and the like, and unclear how much is going to be savings for DOT by insourcing the environmental review of the Greenway. And then lastly, I thought it was interesting, city savings. We're saving $80.5 million between fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22 by not purchasing vehicles. So those vehicles, so we'll be able to purchase ambulances, fire trucks, that sort of thing, we will be able to purchase. But things like sanitation enforcement, parks enforcement, those other vehicles that the city would, then they're not going to be purchasing. between fiscal year 21 and 22. And then, 1 second. This is a slide from the IBO as the Independent Budget Office. The Independent Budget Office, traditionally looks at the budget and looks at what they think are discrepancies between their analysis and the analysis that what is being put forth in the analysis by the mayor. As is usual, there is discrepancies on what they feel the reserves and the surplus will be, and the projected revenue and so on. That's not new. You can reference that and all of this information in the OMB publications and the IBO publications. And at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to see the references. I thought it was interesting that the IBO determined that there is not enough money to meet the demand of, I can't read with all of this, I'm not used to. There is not a demand to meet the public assistance caseload. So there is a need of at least $69.970 million that are not reflected. So there's that discrepancy. Again, not new, there's always discrepancies. And this one, which is about charter schools, is quite interesting. The IBO projects that there'll be a need for an additional $90 million in spending for school tuition costs at charter schools. And I know for a number of community boards, charter schools is important, and I wanted to bring this up. You all can get this presentation. We'll be emailing it to you. If you want to be able to reference any of the numbers or information, they're in these websites. They're all open to the public. They don't require any registration or membership. And this is who we are. If you want to reach out to me and ask any questions, I'm going to stop sharing. So this, just like last year, we're mentioning pretty much what has been communicated either in the news and in different reports and so on. This is not an analysis of the budget. It's more presenting some of the issues that might be important to the community board. I also want to let you know that our office will be putting out today a survey that will collect information from constituents and people who work in Manhattan about budget priorities so that we can then write our budget response. It's due in March. We'll be sharing that with you, and we would definitely want to have you circulate that with people in your community boards. And people will also be able to send us testimony or ideas or their budget priorities. We will include those. We will also be including the budget priorities for all the community boards, which I've reviewed already. And that's all for me if there's any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Vanessa. I see some hands already raised here. If everyone can please use the raise hand function as they are looking to seek some answers. First, I'll call on Xavier Santiago, please.
Thank you. Vanessa, thank you very much for your presentation. Also, thank you for attending our budget committee meeting and walking all of us through the process. It was very helpful this cycle. We had Senator Schumer attend our full board meeting on Tuesday, and we expressly asked questions about—
Xavier, he goes to every meeting, just so you know. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Gal. Yeah, I figured he did, as he claimed, but yeah, he explained that that language was being written in to the bill to bypass the state, much to the chagrin of Governor Cuomo. So I would hope that would carry through during reconciliation so that we would have funds to close that gap. How quickly would that actually trickle down to our budgets if that happens within the next couple of months?
I don't have the answer to that question. I don't know how to answer that question, Xavier. I can find out and let you know, but I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know if anybody else in this meeting might know that answer, but I don't.
Okay. All right.
We can find out. We can find out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you, Vanessa. In the area of education, I'm just curious. There is some, I think, announcements or some news that they're above and beyond what you spoke about today. That there may be clawbacks in education based on headcount of this year.
Yes.
And curious if you can share any thoughts on that or details. I think that's a big impact in our area. But it's somewhat of the headcount based on this year. There'll be some clawbacks and how that will then affect future budgets, which is exacerbated by the challenges of the budgets of next year. So just curious if you had any comments and you can help us out with any understanding of that.
I think I can come back to you, Stephen, with that information. What community board are you, please?
7.
7?
Yes.
I'll come back to you, Stephen.
We're very aware of that issue, and we protested it personally to the chancellor. We put it in writing, Stephen. It is a huge issue, and we will follow up. It is sometimes $800,000, $900,000 per school.
Yeah, I mean, I've saw schools, and my understanding is that they didn't have enough budgets to get all the new teachers that they had to based on strategies put together already. So.
And I personally asked the mayor, that was my question during the budget briefing by the mayor, and it has been followed up by the city council. So I'm glad you reminded us, but the mayor said, as he does, I'll look into it. That's a good idea, Gail. But I haven't gotten an answer. So let me follow up. But that was me asking him and follow up by the other council members.
Thank you.
Tammy?
So I want to thank Stephen for asking, because that was one of 3 things on my list about the budget clawbacks from the DOE, because the schools who are asked to add additional staff, provide far more services, and yet now you're clawing back money on all aspects. I'd like to know, when we're taking a look at the budget cuts, it's seriously concerning to me that we're focusing on youth cuts anywhere, considering they have been the most highly affected in terms of generations in this, with the lack of in-person schooling, the changes. Numbers are astronomical about kids who are behind. So I'm really concerned about the amount of money that's being cut anywhere from DOE, anywhere from fair funding. Any of that is really concerning. And yet I balance it with the question of, the mayor's office made a decision to push ahead with the expansion on the ferry service, which is the most highly subsidized ferry or transportation service. We're trying to get the MTA back up on its feet, and yet we've now decided as a city, I believe that the ferries will be a great boon and add, but why this year, for year 22, when it is the most highly subsidized and the largest drain on our budgets in terms of transportation alternatives to the subway? I don't really understand why I'm looking at budget cuts here when I know that there's a giant funnel coming out the other end there. And what is the rationale for not pausing on that to be able to flush out other areas?
Frozen? Okay, sorry. I thought that you were getting frozen. Tammy, those are all great questions. I think those are questions that need to be addressed directly to the administration. We can definitely include those in our budget response and do advocacy around it. I know that Community Board 1 included a number of issues around the ferries in your district needs, and both for capital and expense. So we will definitely be including some of that in our response. I think I should urge people for the community boards, questions that you would like us to directly address or issues that you would like us to directly address in our budget response, and/or via letters or asking particular questions, that you reach out to me and give us an email with some of those questions.
The last question was, you had a line on the slide that said storm surge and climate. That's a very broad and general statement that doesn't really have meaning. Intent is as in comparison to all the other things you've listed, which have targeted programs. Can you define exactly what that is?
So it is very broad because that's how very broad they put it out. It is in more detail in the financial plan, and I can find specific slides and send them to you, Tammy, so you can see specifically what they've said, but it's not as specific as you would want it to be, or any of us would want it to be. That's very,
thank you,
written in very general terms. So definitely additional inquiry about what they mean by that. I think it's needed. Yes, I agree with you.
thank you.
Great. I'm looking through. I don't see any additional questions or hands raised. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. And great. So I guess we'll move on to our next presenter. Right, Rosie? We'll move on to Wilvina Gordon
Yes.
with Narcotics Anonymous.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wilvina Gordon, and I'm the chairperson for the Public Information Manhattan Area Subcommittee of Narcotics Anonymous. I also want to introduce my colleague, Peter Hornstein, who is also involved with the Public Information Subcommittee. And before I get into my slide presentation, I just want to emphasize, you're probably aware that the number of overdose deaths have been 82,000. That was reported by the CDC since May of 2020. And since the pandemic, it is just a crisis that, that we want to speak to today. So Narcotics Anonymous, for those of you who may not be aware, we are a community resource. We've been in operation since 1953. We are a nonprofit international organization, and we are an absolutely free resource in the community. Our goal is to share. We're a peer-based resource that helps people live drug-free lives and recover from the impact of addiction. We are also an adjunct to treatment facilities, and we provide meetings that people in treatment can continue in a way that assists their long-term recovery. So Narcotics Anonymous around the world has 76,075 weekly meetings. And actually, I think one of the things I wanted to emphasize is that Narcotics Anonymous is currently meeting virtually around the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is important because I think there is some kind of confusion that because of the pandemic, Narcotics Anonymous has shut down and it's not operating. In the Manhattan area, there are currently about 71 meetings right now that are meeting virtually. Now that is a reduction of meetings that we've had. Prior to COVID, we had 163 meetings in New York City in Manhattan. So we're operating at about 50% in terms of our face-to-face meetings. But I think that one of the things I wanted to just bring up in that case is the impact of our fellowship worldwide, and that anybody that wants to attend a meeting currently can attend a meeting right now. There are meetings going on in Pakistan, India, China, all over the globe that people can actually attend virtually. So,
Apologies. Do you mind making that your screen a little larger by clicking that present button on the right side next to share on at the top? That you see that yellow share button. If you click present next to it, it makes the screen a little bit bigger so we can see more of the information.
Okay, I'm just I don't see the present.
At the top of the right next to, you see that yellow share button? To the left of that, you'll see present.
Oh, okay.
Not
Okay.
Okay, we can just move forward. Thank you, though.
All right. Is that better?
No, it's not presenting, but it's fine. We can just move forward.
All right. You know what? Let me stop the share and then try it again. Hold on.
I think you needed to click on that little arrow to scroll down.
Okay.
There it is.
Did that work?
Yes, that looks
Yes,
better.
thank you.
Okay. So in how NA works, basically, we suggest that people have regular meeting attendance, and that's how you develop a connection to people who are drug-free. You're able to get a sponsor in the program. A sponsor is just another person in recovery who shares their experience about getting through life on life terms issues without using drugs. We also have an application of 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous, and spiritual principles are our solution to the way that we deal with recovery. Okay, now let's see. Okay, so NA meetings themselves, if anyone has been able to attend a meeting, we basically have meetings that are open to the public. Many times we have nurses attending our meeting, other professionals in these open meetings, and meetings basically provide a safe environment for people to share their successes and their challenges to live drug-free. Meetings that are closed meetings are for addicts only, and they're listed in our meeting guides as such with those distinctions. So every 2 years, Narcotics Anonymous creates a survey, and it's a self-reported survey. It's not scientific, but we've created these surveys since 1996 because it's helpful for professionals to basically get a look at who attends our meetings, what the average length of clean time is in our fellowship. And I think that significantly, there are so many more members now that have 20, 30, and 40 years clean, continuous clean time without interruption to using. And I think one of the most important influences in continuing NA is when they attend their meetings, being connected through treatment or referred through counseling or other ways, public service announcements. So this is actually one of the reasons that we're presenting today. There's many avenues to get to Narcotics Anonymous. These are also statistics from our survey in terms of quality of life improvements. So you can basically see that, you know, many of our members are able to return to school, return to stable housing and employment, and all of the things that, you know, are concurrent with a drug-free life improving are indicated here. So since COVID, the successes that Narcotics Anonymous has been able to have worldwide is quickly uploading our meetings to a virtual platform. The majority of our meetings virtually right now are on the Zoom platform, as is this one. And once again, there are meetings that are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So one of the other critical things that Narcotics Anonymous has been able to accomplish is getting virtual meetings into prison and parole. So,
well, Vina, can we
yeah.
just stop you for 1 second because the slides are not changing. So,
They're not changing.
Yeah, it's been on the same slide now since you went to the larger frame.
Okay, all right.
Louisa, is there something you could suggest that we do? Or maybe we just go back to at least seeing it small so that we can see what you're referencing.
Let's go back to how we were looking at it before. I'm not sure.
All right, hold on a second. All right. Okay, give me one. You know what I have to do? Let me go back. Let me exit my screen and then put it back. Thanks for telling me. I know I must have gone through like 5 slides already.
Yeah, Well, yeah, they're changing for you, so you wouldn't know. Can you pull it back up on the screen and then try moving to the next screen, to the next slide, and we'll tell you whether we're seeing it flip?
Yeah, hold on. I think I've got it. Hold on. Okay, how about now?
Okay, try going to the next screen. Okay, yeah, now it's moving.
Okay. All right, so let me go to the COVID slide because I think that's where I was. This just talks about the regular meetings. This was for these were statistics for the membership survey. So I apologize for it being really tiny.
Well, Vina, if you can provide us with these, with the slide deck, we can send it out with the minutes to everyone who's here today.
Okay, all right, that'll be perfect.
Great, thank you.
So I'll just talk through this again. This is just the bar graph of the membership survey. You know, that was basically just showing all the areas of improvement once attending meetings that's self-reported by our membership. So, okay, this slide is talking about the successes that we've had since COVID in terms of up-ramping our meetings to Zoom, and also speaking to the fact that currently Narcotics Anonymous meetings are going into prisons virtually in the United States, in several places, and they're also virtual parole meetings. And one of the reasons I wanted to come on this presentation to talk about this, in Manhattan specifically, they have the Manhattan Detention Complex is one of the places that has the JPay tablets. Narcotics Anonymous is actually able to load free literature onto those tablets through the manufacturer. It happened already in Ohio State prisons. They just recently signed the contract with NA World Services to upload this literature. And so in the Manhattan Detention Complex, where JPay tablets are already in operation, that is something that we want to take a look at getting, as well as using those tablets for virtual visitation meetings. So Narcotics Anonymous also uses social media to make our message available. We're able to use Twitter. We have several PSAs that we're trying to get uploaded to radio stations right now. NA World Services has an Instagram for Narcotics Anonymous, and there are actually some groups that are starting to make informational videos through TikTok. Okay, so what has worked in our program? This white key tag is actually a welcome key tag that is reflects our international fellowship. So what works is that being able to make regular meetings, like we suggest that once you start making 90 meetings in 90 days, not just random meetings, that's how the program starts to become an influence and kind of be able to make an impact in people's lives. The other things that have been working, we have something called special interest meetings. That means that there are some meetings that are especially for women, some meetings for LGBT members. We also have members for deaf people who have other special issues, single parents and so forth. So those kind of meetings for people that are unaware that we really have some targeted niche kind of specialty meetings in Narcotics Anonymous that helps out. All right, some of the challenges that we have experienced during COVID. I just mentioned in New York that currently we have 82 virtual meetings, which is down from, I guess, the 163 face-to-face meetings that we've had. But there's also one hybrid meeting that we have in Manhattan. So hybrid means that there are some people that are coming in face-to-face while we project on the screen the virtual meeting. But we're also using protocols and guidelines. There's temperature taken at the door. There's contract tracing that's happening at that meeting. And I think that as we're moving forward, we're also going to need the help of all the community boards. We may have to start looking for other meeting spaces. Many meetings in Narcotics Anonymous take place in churches. Some of them take place in community centers, but we're really going to need your help once this starts to probably identify other places, as churches and others, may not allow us back in. And so we want to start preparing for that. You can contact Narcotics Anonymous, the Greater New York region, which Manhattan area is under. We basically have 13 regions under the Greater New York region. They span not just the 5 boroughs, but they go all the way upstate, Orange County, Hudson County, and so forth. You can access our regional website. This is actually a screenshot of the website page, newyorkna.org. You can find all of the meetings there. You can contact professionals, can reach out there. So I wanted to make that available. And then what we're really kind of hoping to accomplish by appearing here today is not just to let people know that we exist, but we're really trying to get our helpline number added to city resource pages, government kiosks, and 311 operators, so that, if people have problems with addiction, they can quickly access our helpline number. So we also are really trying to get this NA literature loaded onto the JPay tablets for inmates. And we're trying to also facilitate virtual meeting access. Many of the facilities and treatment centers think that Narcotics Anonymous is closed, or they're having some issues themselves in making meetings available. Currently, Narcotics Anonymous has what's called a Hospitals and Institutions Committee that brings these meetings into facilities, and they brought them in obviously pre-COVID, but now we're having challenges communicating again with facilities. And one of the things, I actually attended the Stand Up for Recovery Day virtual meeting that had something like 12,000 attendees on it. I'm sorry, not 12,000, 1,200. That was on February the 8th. It was the New York State Stand Up for Recovery Day, and they were talking about accessing telehealth and using telehealth. That's an avenue that we want to try to look at to maybe bring NA meetings in through that venue if it's at all possible. So lastly, we want to also really ramp up our coordination with the local precincts to be able to, do more presentations with the precincts. We have 5,000 helpline cards that we want to distribute. And I know in different parts of the country, the police actually have these cards that they could give out to people on the street. So we really need help in kind of ramping these things up. And we're hoping that you guys will be able to assist us in that regard. So lastly, this is our contact information. This is our worldwide website, www.na.org. This is the email that you can contact me. And this is the helpline number for the Greater New York region, 212-929-6262. And lastly, virtual-na.org is the place where all of the virtual meetings can be found. So I'm gonna stop my share screen right now. I'm going to ask if Peter Hornstein wants to add any last points.
Good morning, everybody. Peter Horton, and I am a recovering addict. I'm Manhattan born and raised. I come from the Lower East Side, come from a good middle-class family, and I wound up becoming a heroin addict nonetheless. I'm clean a very long time, 38 years, and I've been doing public information. My home group, which meets at Lenox Hill Hospital, which is in Manhattan. One of the issues that we're dealing with now is the addict that doesn't have a computer or a cell phone. And this is where you guys can come in handy to help us to be able to refer these individuals that are suffering in the throes of addiction to find Narcotics Anonymous. Because with COVID, we're unable to do the outreach that we normally do. And we need to be able to have these people referred to us so that they can possibly get some help. We're not a medical organization and our services are free. After a while, we encourage our members to contribute through passing of the basket at the meetings, which is also a significant thing we talk about being accountable. So there's a lot more to be disseminated in terms of the information about Narcotics Anonymous, but we are a resource in the community. And we have a pamphlet that talks about NA as a resource in the local community. And this is very important because in this day and age, and I'm not talking about COVID now, I'm talking about in the year 2021, I don't believe there's anybody in America that doesn't have a family member or coworker or somebody that's not affected by the disease of addiction. And we're all subjected to it. We see it on TV, we go to the movies. Addiction is out there. It's not covered up as it used to be. And nowadays, because of the nature of the narcotic epidemic that we've been experienced that Will Vina referred to, it's affecting everybody. And if we have a resource like Narcotics Anonymous, which is free and is aimed towards the actual addict, then we have an opportunity to carry this message further. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one other presenter that lives across the country. He said he would field questions. I just want to call your attention to Shane C. And if there's any questions, I guess, at this time.
Yes, if anyone has any questions, please use the raise hand function and we'll call on you.
Otherwise, we can keep moving.
Eleazar?
No, I'm just worried about time.
Eleazar followed by Alicia. You're both on mute. Okay, Alicia, do you have a question? You're on mute. You have your hand raised.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just want to thank Wolvina, and I want to thank your colleagues so much for explaining what NA is and how it operates, and the fact that there are various groups for various groups of people. And I do know that there are tons of people being affected by addiction. I will definitely reach out. I'll have my Health and Human Services Committee chair reach out to you to get you to come on board to CB3 so you can share some information, because we have a very high concentration of addiction on the Lower East Side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're available to attend any of the other community board meetings, and also to regularly participate in any any boards or committees, we want to make sure that we're an active partner and get our message out.
Thank you. Eleazar, you still have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just more than just congratulate the presenters. I also like to express gratitude for what you do and what you can do. Just like our colleague that just expressed their desire to have you guys come and do a presentation. I will do the same, and I would like to have a series of presentations, especially in Community Board 12, who have had two of the worst incidents related to mental health, which is the St. John the Divine suicide and the subway situation. They're both individuals from Latino descent resided in our community. So it's a problem that is already hit our doors. So I think what you guys do is necessary rather than just a formality. So thank you, and I'll be reaching out to you directly. Thank you for the presentation again.
Thank you. Yes, I did neglect to mention that we have Spanish language meetings in Narcotics Anonymous, many of them also in Manhattan. I'm in recovery myself as well. My home group is a Hell's Kitchen meeting. It meets Saturday at 9 p.m. It's a rotating step meeting. And, once again, I think it is also important. We also have a mental illness IP that was just published. And there's a lot of confusion that people who are on psychotropic or other drugs, there's confusion about whether or not they can recover in Narcotics Anonymous. There's definitely addiction and mental illness are co-occurring. So we have support for that. We have literature for that. And our program also has some literature that that is really amazing. It's the basis of our program.
Another thing is we have plenty of literature in Spanish, and our basic text has been translated into Spanish as well, French, Russian, many other languages. So if you contact any of the websites or phone numbers, you can get a full list of all the translated literature.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. If there are no other questions, we're going to move to chair reports. Okay. Thank you, Wilvina, and thank you, Peter, for joining us today and for your presentation. Please make sure you send us a copy of the slide deck so that we could add it to our minutes for all the chairs. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it is February, so we start with Community Board 2. Carter Booth, Chair Report.
Good morning, everybody. In preparing my report for today, I had a chance to talk to Bob Gormley, our district manager, and he had brought something up with respect to the Borough President's Office. It would be very helpful if you could draft and distribute a one-page sheet, a cheat sheet or a directive on the many different policies that each of the board offices needs to follow, and particularly for the chairs, and what our responsibilities are to ensure adhering to things like a lot of the equal opportunity or equal employment practices guidance and other similar things like that. We had one of our audits that there were some things that we were not aware of that we were responsible for doing. So that might be helpful, especially because, as I see, there are a lot of new board chairs and people may not be aware of all of our responsibilities as sort of head of the board for that. Second, we had a great forum this month for our local theaters or small theaters, sort of hearing from them as open culture and other things are ramping up, and they had an opportunity to review with us their programming challenges. A lot of them have been online, but they're hoping to take advantage of some of the programs that are coming out. We heard about their operational challenges, rent, loss of income, scheduling, safety, and staffing issues. It's particularly important for us. We rely a lot on daily visitors, which include tourists and office workers and those businesses, theater and restaurants really help to create the activity that supports our other retail businesses. So that was a great hearing. I know some of the other boards have been had presentations on Intro 2186. I don't know if this is something that the community boards want to respond to as a group, considering that it impacts the manner in which we participate in land use. You'll said another great, our equity working group, we had a Black-owned business forum, which was phenomenal. And we're hoping to take some of that energy and perhaps foster the creation of a downtown Black business owners group that can advocate on the members' behalf. I know, for those of you downtown, it's been interesting as people try to find lists of Black-owned businesses. It was surprising that how many people didn't know about all the different businesses, and that's something that's been very interesting. And the participants really, I've been talking to people about it all month, and so it's something that, as you know, downtown is a lot less diverse than some of other community boards, and it's something that we want to continue. And so if there are any other chairs that are interested in that, I know that the co-chairs of our equity working group are very interested in discussing that. Our reopening working group, which is focusing on the open restaurants and open street restaurants, we want to make sure that there's a conversation going forward for any permanency of the program. It's been a great success in supporting our businesses right now, but as we start to see a transition with vaccines, we'd love to have a role in that discussion. As most of you know, we didn't get to play a role in the creation of the program that we have right now. And the last topic is I think that we may want to, as a group, start talking about the transition to public meetings in person or hybrid meetings. There will be a lot of technological challenges as far as doing hybrid meetings. And I think it's something we need to start discussing way in advance, because as most of you know, our budget are very limited. And so if that's going to be a possibility, we're really going to have to talk a lot about that and plan as opposed to spending. So just wanted to raise that. And this is the second to last Borough Board meeting for me. So we are having nominations tonight at our full board meeting. So I look forward to seeing you one last time next month. Thanks.
Thank you, Carter. CB3.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much to all the presenters this morning and our elected officials and our borough president. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Zoom best practices. We're still having some difficulties with our Zoom meetings. People are having second and third meetings inside the Zoom chat rooms. And so we are in need of maybe some ideas on how we can best remedy some of the issues that we're still having in the Zoom platform. And like Carter just said, yeah, perhaps we need to start looking at what it's all going to look like with the hybrid meetings and the intermingling of, are we going to stay on Zoom? Are we going to go back live? I don't know. So maybe someone can shed some light on that. We had a major meeting the other night with our transportation and public safety committee about the open restaurants. They actually put together a resolution because the program is now permanent with the open restaurants and the details have not all been worked out. Our community board made an extensive recommendation based on complaints and issues that came in from residents and businesses.
Alicia, we lost you. Alicia?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What part did you miss? I apologize. I don't know what happened just now.
You
yeah. No,
you were saying about the open restaurants and
Yeah.
And all the details haven't been worked out, and then we lost.
Yes.
We just
So all the details haven't been worked out, but we have made a resolution, some recommendations based on complaints and issues that came from residents and businesses. And I was hoping to be able to share my screen, and I do apologize. I'm learning all this stuff. Here it is. And now let me see if I can share this screen with you. Please bear with me.
Alicia, maybe you could just send it to us, and we can
Yeah,
send you with the
I think
minutes, and you could just summarize.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I did send it to Louisa, I believe. Louisa, I think I sent it to you. And I do apologize, but you know, based upon the recommendations that we're asking for, is that people really understand that this is not going away, and we're still going to be revisiting this for quite a while now. And when you get a chance, Rosie, if someone could send it out to the other community boards so that it could be shared, and maybe they can use it also as a part of, maybe if they're creating a resolution around it. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. The other thing is, you know, it's Lunar New Year, so gong hei fat choi, everyone. And in Lunar New Year in the Lower East Side, there is the remembrance of the 70 Mulberry Street fire. And you know, it was a loss for 5 nonprofit organizations and a cultural community center, and the mayor committed to $60 million to renew the site. So we're just praying and hoping that this actually goes to fruition for all of us. So have a blissful holiday season. And also, as we commemorate Black History Month, I want everyone to be in remembrance of the loss of many of our cultural, because of COVID, many of us are not able to celebrate Black history the way we normally do and get out to some of these cultural events. So continue to shed light and love to everyone. And thank you. That's the end of my report.
We should just it's Gail. I just want to mention that the money is in the budget for 70 more. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the money is there. I know there are any other issues. I checked.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So before moving on to the next board, I just want to state that last month we had at the Borough Service Cabinet best practices and moving with Zoom meetings, and we did ask the DMs to go back to the boards and start having conversations in case the executive order is lifted, or, you know, as a push is still made for a hybrid meeting, so we can start having those conversations. Carter, yeah, we will work on this one-page cheat sheet. And in terms of EEO, you know, when members are reapplying, they now have to agree that they will be taking an EEO course that we will have once every 2 years, so once during your term. So we're trying to lock down some dates with COIB and our general counsel, and those will be upcoming, but we'll certainly put these informational sheets together. Just some administrative stuff here. After roll call, we were joined by Lowell Kern. He had to leave, so I don't know if he's still on the call. And we were joined by Eliezer Bueno, that's respectively CB4 and CB12. So is Lowell still on the call? Okay, CB5.
Good morning, everyone. As you probably know, last month, the street vendor bill was voted on by the council, and it extended the number of permits from the 1983 cap of 2,900 to 4,000 at the rate of 100 a year. And we wanted to, even though we knew we only had 2 days to weigh in, we couldn't get it to the full board. So we had our 2 committees that deal with this conduct a public meeting to get some feedback and to send to the council. And it turned out to be a very interesting meeting because it was almost impossible to get consensus. I'm sure you all know it's sort of like, I call it the cilantro of issues. You either love it or you hate it. And we had people who came on. We listened to the bids. We listened to people from the Street Vendor Project, the Speaker's Office, the public, the council members who were sponsoring it. And because we couldn't form a consensus, what we decided to do, or what the two committees decided to do, is send a letter with all of our concerns, with the hope that the council would take that into consideration, even though the bill was passed. So in listening to them, we pointed out several concerns regarding congestion, enforcement, not enough funding. So the letter was sent to the council, and it was really to convey the feedback from our community. What we emphasized was that we were looking to improve the system that has really long needed changes, we all know. And we listed 5 requests. We wanted the city to create a detailed map. We wanted the city to increase available data. We want the city to share a detailed plan for the street vendor enforcement. We want regular reporting to CB5 by the Vendor Enforcement Board and the electeds. And we want the city to appoint a representative from CB5 to the Street Vendor Advisory Board. So hopefully we'll get some response and some answers. We shall see. I only have 2 issues. The other one is quite long, so let me just give you an overview. I'll try and be very quick on it. I'm going to give you an introductory and then give you some details. The governor introduced a bill in the budget that would allow Class B and C office space in CB5 and a portion of CB4 to be converted to residential, and it would override any local laws or codes, including the building code, zoning code, and the energy code. CB5 passed a resolution urging the governor and our state elected officials to remove this bill from the budget. Under this measure, hotels and offices can go residential if the owner agrees to set aside at least 20% of the apartments as affordable, or if the property is used as supportive housing through an agreement with the city and state. Currently, developers can get a tax-exempt financing if they set aside that percentage of units as affordable through the state-administered 80-20 program, as you know. The legislation, though, gives owners considerable wiggle room to meet the affordable requirements. And a third option suggests that they could, and this is the loophole, they could contribute to a fund to support creating affordable housing or supportable housing off-site to prevent homelessness. So the state's Division of Homes and Community Renewal would be charged with determining what is necessary. That means they could have off-site housing in Albany. It could be anywhere in the state. The proposal would take effect immediately upon enactment and would be applicable to qualified hotel properties in any borough outside of Manhattan or within Manhattan between Chambers and 110th Street, and qualified office buildings located between 9th and Park Avenues and 14th and 60th Streets of Manhattan, which encompasses CB5 completely and a little bit of CB4. It would remain in effect for 5 years, expiring in December of 26. Our resolution states that zoning, and here we're really strong on this, it's the responsibility and the prerogative of local municipalities, and changes like this, need to go through the proper local legislative process, including ULURP, to ensure that they are done thoughtfully, equitably, transparently, and with consideration of all environmental impacts. We agree that addressing high commercial vacancy rates, underutilized hotel properties, and as well as addressing the lack of affordable and supportive housing are essential priorities. We are deeply concerned that this bill would not address its stated goals and may exacerbate an already high market rate residential vacancy rate and does not require desperately needed affordable housing in our district. So we voted to oppose this proposal, and we further urge the city and state legislators to oppose the proposal. And we call for the governor to withdraw it from the bill from the state budget. Those are two main things for the month. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to see you're going to be going, Carter. We'll miss you. See you next month.
Thank you. CB6.
All right, good morning, everyone. Very similar issues that have already been mentioned. Working with CB5 on a couple of these ULURP and development issues as well that coincide with CB6. A lot of focus on mental health, particularly with the homeless populations. We've seen a lot of that in the news, and one of the things that we've seen experientially is that a lot of this population is dealing with developmental disabilities and not necessarily getting the support that they need. So we are starting some topics on that and some investigations into resources available. We're also starting a conversation on police reform. The state has given a deadline of April 1st for their commission plan to be finalized. So we're gonna take a look at that as well. And then last but not least, it's already been mentioned several times about the post-pandemic meetings, what this looks like. CB6 has actually put out a survey on gaining feedback from the community, as well as people who have attended our meetings, as well as board members, to see what has worked and not worked with these virtual meetings. And our Budget and Governmental Affairs team will be putting together a resolution on how the public meeting laws can be amended to address the concerns and just adapt to the challenges of our current time. So hopefully when that comes through, I can work with several of the community boards here to put something together. Maybe we can do something as a borough board to really solidify those changes that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. CB7.
Thank you. I'd like to, I'll start summarizing, or I should mention from a YEL perspective, some of the budgetary challenges that we heard are consistent with some of the things that we're discussing. We have in our education committee this month, a large section about mental health and the challenges that we're hearing. And I don't know how many people saw the article about the 3 suicides from students. That was very, very moving. So that's the topics that were going on. And I think we're all very, very concerned about education, about schools being out for a prolonged period of time, and the effects that they have in that. Another issue that continues to be important for us is housing and Nycha issues. We had Victor Bach present this month, which was a very spirited conversation, and we'll continue for those conversations as well. And then today in your packets, there are 2 specific resolutions that came out of our HHS that I'd just like to mention. I'm not going to go through and read them because our HHS does a really good and thorough job of writing resolutions. So they're quite detailed with quite a bit of facts, but I'll summarize them. The first one is about food insecurities. And I think we're all, again, I've been very moved at the lines that we see when people line up for getting food, and we've got a handful of great programs in our area. A resolution came out addressing all these needs, and just to summarize a couple brief facts, and then go to the resolution part of it, or I should say, therefore, I think the numbers at the end of the year we went from 1.2 to 2 million of New York City population that has food insecurities, I should say. So it's a very powerful resolution. Again, I ask that people read it, and we would hope that we think this is an issue both for the entire city, but particularly of the Manhattan Borough. And a handful of things are asked, but in terms of the therefore section, it be resolved that we prioritize the recommendations that were made in here, and we strengthen and expand the Mayor's Office of Food Policy. And then second of all, it's asking for legislature as well to continue supplying these issues. And it says the Mayor's Office of Food Policy for the appropriate government agencies to develop legislation to address additional and identified needs to ensure food security, equity, and access for all residents of New York City. And clearly, with an issue such as this, equity is an important issue. So it's something that I think would concern all of us. The second resolution that was passed is something that we've been focused on for the last couple months. and that is hate crimes, which are going up, continue to grow at a staggering rate. I think 2019, they were up 100%. I'm not sure if the 2020 data is out yet, but we've had several meetings, particularly with the DA office, and then we are going to have a forum in the next couple of weeks about this as well. But it's a very powerful resolution condemning this. Again, it's a pretty extensive resolution, and I ask that everyone read it. But I'll give a quick summary of the therefore section, which is in general, Community Board 7 in Manhattan rejects and condemns all forms of hate and white supremacy and extremism. It goes on later to talk about education and the school system, and it continues to talk about the challenges overall in terms of hate crimes. And then lastly, it talks about data. So it's therefore resolved that Community Board 7 calls on the NYPD to continue to improve data collection and reporting on hate crimes and providing training to improve trust between law enforcement and communities to encourage more reporting on hate crimes. So those are very brief summaries, but these are fairly extensive resolutions. And I think we hope that everyone would take the time to read them and that we would consider them for a future full board vote. Thank you.
Thank you. CB8.
Thank you. So we were very glad to participate with a number of other Manhattan community boards and folks on this call at the end of January in a program on the economic impacts of the changing conditions in housing, and our district manager Will Brightbill and my predecessor CBA chair Lita Camp worked very hard on that, and we were very sorry to hear the passing of April Tyler, who was also one of the key people working on that, but it was nice to get a chance to work with so many of you on that program. Our board passed a number of resolutions at our meeting last night, and just a few of them that I'll share with you. We had supported a French dual language program, which had existed previously and had been cut at the last minute by the Department of Education, which really caught a bunch of parents by surprise. And there's been a lot of opposition to that decision. So we're supportive of restoring that. We also passed a resolution in support of diversifying school curricula. We passed a resolution that came out of our Social Justice Committee that condemned the January 6th insurrection and also the disproportionate way that participants in that event had been treated compared to peaceful protesters over the summer. And we also passed a resolution regarding parking placards and the ongoing problems around that, in support of increased enforcement and also a switch to a digital placard system. Our committees have been working on a number of issues. We actually did also submit on the question of the vendor bill that Vicky had brought up. We submitted testimony from our co-chairs of the vendors committee addressing that. And in particular, we've been very focused on making sure that, changes are implemented in a way that, and our big concern is making sure that street vendors aren't taking away from small businesses in terms of where they're located and things of that nature. And we've been doing other work to try and help small business in the district and look at ways that can be done that given the challenges that we've been facing with COVID. We've been looking at the vaccine rollout and the frustrations that have been going on there. And we really appreciate the efforts of the borough president in your office to have the regular vaccine task force meetings addressing that issue. We've been looking at voting issues, and in particular, how to address some of the challenges that we had with regard to early voting in our district in Community Board 8. We had huge lines during early voting last year, and we have been looking into changes to try and avoid having the same issue this year. And we're also looking ahead to using ranked choice voting for the first time and wanting to make sure that the community is ready for that and is going to be knowing what to expect and how to do that. We had some very good news on a few items in our district over the last month. There was an announcement that there was going to be $284 million for repairs to the East River Esplanade, which we were very excited about. That's something that we worked on for a long time, along with CB11, and of course, our council member Ben Kalos and the borough president and Carolyn Maloney and others. And we were also very pleased that there's going to be a bike lane, dedicated bike lane on the Queensboro Bridge, which is another item that we had advocated for. One thing that we did last night that may be of particular interest to other community boards is we had a presentation on the results of our resolutions over the years. So one of our members looked back over a 6-year period, and this was a long project. It took a while to do, but basically looked at resolutions that were passed by various committees in the board and what responses they had gotten from city and state agencies, and tracking essentially how many had gotten positive responses where the city and state actually followed what we had recommended, and then how many had gotten negative responses where they didn't, and tracking those and getting a sense of the percentages of sort of how effective we had been and how often we had been listened to. And there was a lot of interest in that, and a lot of interest in wanting to keep that going forward, and trying to maintain more data of that nature. So that may be something that other folks want to look at. In terms of looking ahead, we're going to be looking at the Planning Together initiative. There are, in general, I think it's just something we need to learn a lot more about before we take a position on it. I agree with Carter that it seems like something that might be a good thing for the borough board to look at. But I'll just say in the near term, we do have concerns about the proposed concept of the borough steering committee, which seems like it involves some of the things that community boards and the borough board are responsible for. And we just have concerns with replacing any of the functions of the community board with something that's a more centralized kind of entity. And we also have concerns around the governor's budget proposal item that Vicky mentioned, and we're going to be looking at that in one of our committees next week, and we're expecting to send a letter about that as well. So those are some of the things we're working on and what we've been up to. So that's the CB8 update.
Okay, I don't see him as a panelist. Barry Weinberg, CB9. Just making sure he didn't join a little later. Okay, Cecily, CB10.
Good morning. Good morning. I apologize. I have a 10 a.m. meeting, so I have to give a very abbreviated report. But good morning. My name is Cicely Harris. I'd like to join the chair of CB3 and say Happy Black History Month. First, I'd also like to thank the boards that were involved in our economic impact and changing market conditions forum that we did late in January. I think that was a really great start to the common ground conversations that we want to do. One very important thing that I wanted to bring out about that, again, thank you CB8 for hosting that and all the boards that were involved, but we were able to be blessed by the presence of April Tyler, a dedicated member of CB9 who we lost this week. Sorry, it's still very fresh. So we lost this week, but she moderated very powerfully that forum. And, in many ways, that was such a fitting way to last see her doing something that she loves, something she's so passionate about, and something that she has made just an impact on this city. So I want to thank all the boards that were involved in that. And I know I don't want to throw Kyle under the bus as we move towards maybe doing another forum, but I think CB6 has already, and Tammy and all the other boards have already talked about maybe moving forward and doing another forum like that. So again, thank you for that. Excuse me. Okay, so I wanted to also move on and talk about our housing forum that we did last week with a Philip Randolph Neighborhood Alliance. It was for the love of housing. It was close to Valentine's Day, so that's why we picked that topic and that title. But it also focused on the fact that many folks are not taking advantage of the state rental assistance program, especially in our area. So we're talking about how can we further educate folks about that program. Also, our public safety committee addressing a lot of the uptick in violence in the subway system. We had stabbing and a push on the track at 110th and also at 125th. So we're talking about that. We also talked about sex trafficking in our area, which we have seen an uptick in that. But also I wanted to highlight that we are joining the Links chapter, the Greater New York chapter with CB, I think 9 and 11 and the Borough President's Office to do a forum, and other agencies do a forum about standing up for harassment and against harassment. And we've seen a lot of harassment, of course, this uptake since the pandemic, but definitely against women. And we want to bring attention to that. So that's February 25th at 6 o'clock. Also, we wanted to bring homage and honor to the passing of Cicely Tyson, one of our icons. CB10 actually honored her as Women's History Month in 2018 or 2019 with the Borough President's Office, the local chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and Ruby's Vintage honored Cicely Tyson. From that event, we were able to put together an educational video that we will be able to display at our March meeting, honoring her again, ironically, in that Women's History Month where we did that first presentation. So we'll have that available at our March meeting, honoring the iconic life of Cicely Tyson. And finally, we have the Dorks Brook Square. I've talked about it before. We are well on our way to making this the first African-American district, historic district named after an African-American. It was calendared LPC this month. We are looking forward to that really becoming a reality. I wanted to give thanks to our chair of that, our co-chair of that, Keith Taylor, for all of his hard work. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. CB11, is Nycha still on? I know she got dropped off. Xavier?
Think she's on. Hold on.
She's on. I see her on. And I'm letting her unmute. So she should be able to speak.
Nycha, CB11 report? Xavier, can you start it? Because we can't hear anything.
Yes, I will. So real quick, April Tyler touched many of our lives, so thank you for mentioning that. I know I sat on several panels with her and had many late night conversations about housing, and so I think she's touched so many people's lives. Please hold her family in your thoughts and prayers. Also to piggyback with Cicely Tyson, there is already a movement to rename a street in East Harlem at 101st and Lexington 3rd. Cicely Tyson, as an actress and my vocation as a producer, she was one of my top favorite actresses out there. So just losing some lionesses out here. We had the housing event, which was co-sponsored with CB10 last month. We also issued a letter of support for CCHP, the Center for Comprehensive Health Practice. They're having to relocate out of a metropolitan because they're having to expand and reclaim part of their space. So they're looking to move and stay within the community. We also have a CB11 housing forum that is sponsored with HPD, and that's supposed to be March 31st. It's a Know Your Rights forum. There have been continuing concerns throughout the community with the COVID-19 vaccine. And I want to say a special thanks to the Department of Health and Padmore John, who came to present and lay it out in very simple detail that people need to get the vaccine. I've had to have many conversations, as have other community board members, about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine, but are those that are most vulnerable are elderly, those with comorbidities. We have to get them vaccinated so we can actually protect, as you would say, the larger herd. So those are some of the things we're dealing with right now. And also too, as expressed by many of the other boards, we are looking at how can we navigate our way back into in-person hybrid. Right before the pandemic, we were actually in the process of onlining our meetings so that people could participate virtually. And in fact, we had set up in our office camera equipment and screens so that way we could have almost a live interaction. So those, we're assessing those needs and how we're going to undertake those goals. I just got a text from Nilsa saying she's on, but that they can't hear. I think she just needs to unmute. But that's all I have in front of me right now. Let's see if we can get her unmuted. Louisa?
I think she dropped off. I don't see her on the list of attendees anymore, and I don't see her on panelist either.
I'll try to see if she can get back on. Thank you. That's all I have on my end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CB 12.
Hi,
Eliezer?
sorry. Yeah, hi, how are you? Sorry, I'm trying to shovel snow here. We've concentrated on some important items. One of them is the small businesses recuperation into an abnormal economy. We had an extremely well-attended forum on cannabis and the industry of cannabis, on what it means and how can we, as one of the population that has been the most criminalized upon, how do we get into that economical wave and participation of that industry. We also had an extremely well put together forum on fire safety by our public safety committee, and the chair did a marvelous job as the presentation and the invitees as well. Tonight, we will be, we'll host another meeting by Wayne Benjamin, and he'll be speaking to HPD and Community League of the Heights. He's going to give us an update on the public library in Inwood, just like an overbrief of what's going to transpire and how it looks, and have community integrated as to work through the process. We're also we've been not overseeing, but monitoring the rollout of the vaccine distribution by NYP, New York Presbyterian in the Armory. Has had its bumps and up and downs, just like anything. We're not perfect. They're not perfect, but I think that everyone is well intentioned to make this an extremely successful process. And I'm gonna go back to my original point of mental health. I think undiagnosed mental health is even worse than mental health problems. I think that we've all have been know a person, or each one of us are familiar with it and know a person that has been going through that problem. And I think that we're advocating for patience and tolerance and empathy amongst even one another. At times, our meetings can turn tense, and our differences on opinions and ideologies could play a game into how the decisions are made. So that's probably our next chapter for the entire month, is to ask for that empathy from each one of our members. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Gail. And thank you, each one of you colleagues and chairs that do a lot of hard work to put these presentations together, and this Borough's board.
Thank you. CB1.
Good morning. Thank you very much. It's a busy time continually, seemingly, in CB1. We had an incredible presentation, finally, after waiting almost a year, about the borough-based jails and how it affects in Community Board 1. But what we're looking really for is to understand, we're still waiting for questions to be answered, some of them since March of 2020. But furthermore, we're really looking to understand why we can't see a public engagement schedule It's not like the program doesn't have certain benchmarks. So we're looking to find out how we can get a schedule from the neighborhood advisory committees that have been set up, as well as a schedule and commitment by the mayor's office and the associated agencies to come and update us on a routine basis. So we can do 2021 as a better situation than 2020. And I look hopefully to your office, as we've asked also our council member and others to really help us on this endeavor. Secondly, we appreciate the borough president's follow-up and detail on Governor's Island. We know that that is over still with city planning. We've seen statements come out from our other elected officials this week, from Assemblymember Glick as well as Assemblymember New. So we are looking forward to seeing a final resolution that comes from Department of City Planning on that. We're delighted to see that 5 World Trade Center has awarded an RFP, so there will be some affordable housing in CB1, which we're very thrilled with. But again, we come back to there is no public input in our engagement because the land was taken out of city control. So therefore, we're hoping to have further engagement. We've asked for this since the very, very start to understand and have dialogue. So it's not just from, they really don't have any idea of what's going on in the community around and the changes that have been so significant in the last 25 years since 9/11, 20 years. So that's something that we are curious about and we are very happy about. At the same time, I want to balance that with the governor's proposal, which completely ignores CB1 south of Chambers Street, which is halfway through our thing, for any type of affordable housing for hotel and office conversions. It seems unusual to me that you would exclude the historic district, the financial district, and other places where we've had hotels go under, and we have Class B and C office buildings from the potential to add more affordable housing, which we've been advocating for. So we look forward to pushing forward on having a dialogue to include CB1 on that. I also want to take a note for, we voted last month and had a presentation on 240 Greenwich. And I bring this up because it's a very, very important sort of look at what's going on in our city. We rejected an application that was called a, quote, minor modification of a special permit. And the problem that we have with it is it included an elimination of a public lobby. Now, there's been discussion and argument. City planning came and presented for the applicant to talk about how, well, it really wasn't a public lobby, but there are decades old of reports by the city and other things that we purport say it is a public lobby and it has been documented as a public lobby. So we support and approved the part of the application that talked about, you know, greening the exterior of the building, upgrading one of the spaces in front of DC 37 and things like that. There were many lovely things that we said would be good that we supported, as long as they, of course, talk to the stakeholder, which they hadn't yet, for which this public outdoor area that they were looking to improve goes. But we also said that we don't think that losing a public space for trees on the exterior of a building that benefits the landlord for the value of their real estate is a fair process. And the fact that it was commingled and almost hidden and not in a ULURP process, although goodness knows we have plenty of ULURP processes right now in the city, really doesn't speak well to public engagement and speaks more to the concerns we have about things that are being put through without purview. So I say that, and I want to close with thanking the boards for all the Housing and Economic Impact Forum that we had at the end. I'm sad that April's not around because she really is, I did not know her long, but she was lovely and a fantastic moderator. And we really do need to do work for the schools. It is concerning that the budget really is tagging some major things for the education system, which has been one of the hardest hit in New York City. So I appreciate everyone on all the other boards tagging into that as well. So that is it for CB1. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. Madam Borough President. The president's report.
Thank you very much. A few issues on the vaccines. I thank the community boards for being part of our Tuesday at 3, and I think it's nice to have the same time because many hundreds of people are participating. I think what we learn is interesting. One of the things I learned from the very first was, just as an example, was that the Veterans Administration had their own cache of vaccines and they were doing them, and it wasn't on the state website. It wasn't on the city website. I thought to myself, oh my goodness, think of all the people I could have asked as we helped them if they had a family member who was a veteran, because then they could have gone there and I wouldn't have to spend 2 hours, 6 hours on the websites trying to find them a shot. So that was just one example. I think most recently, we were trying to figure out the homebound, and we learned something that you might know, which is that the Meals on Wheels, for instance, delivers, and they have refrigerated trucks, and they're done at 3 o'clock. So they could use their refrigerated trucks. They don't need to have Johnson & Johnson. They can use Moderna that can fit into their refrigeration, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an example of hello, New York City, hello, New York State. Could we please work together? So that's where this vaccine task force comes into effect. I appreciate the city participating, even though, they do get bashed by us, but we appreciate it. We also testified at a hearing yesterday that the city had, I think, Councilmember Levine and certainly the folks from technology and aging for convening that. I know the council members on, and he'll hear from in a minute, I hope, about that hearing. Right now, I have complaints, as I'm sure you do, including Uptown. Basically, everybody's doing the second dose, and you can't get a first dose because there is no supply. And I think Mark Levine can talk more about that, but it's rough. We've had good experiences. We learned that in the Lower East Side, working with a nonprofit, 400 seniors were personally called, and personally the nonprofit set up their appointments. And in that development, 100% of those individuals got a shot. Different situation uptown in East Harlem, Urban Marshall, we get a call, there isn't anybody there. There's nobody there. Why is there nobody at the site that's being distributed? Because there wasn't any outreach. Somebody forgot. That was a state site and Nycha. So we then got on the phone, we found 130 people, we got them to go to that site. But you can see that this is what you need in many cases is a nonprofit working to collaborate to make sure that the seniors who deserve to get that support are there. It cannot happen just with Nycha and a city or state agency, in my opinion. So I just want to emphasize that when we get the vaccines supply, make sure in your community board that there is a nonprofit. Don't have somebody say, well, we have shots today. No. Who is the nonprofit who's working with the group? Because otherwise it doesn't work. So I just throw that out as a really important aspect. There are 136,000 homebound New Yorkers. Just under Meals on Wheels, there are 20,000, just to give you some numbers. And we want to make sure that those who are doing the delivery get vaccinated at the same time. The drivers, obviously we've been pushing for the home health aides. That's been another support mechanism that we feel very strongly should be vaccinated. So those are some of the things, and I know that more will come up every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. I just want to mention in terms of testing, to the credit of our amazing staff, we are at Word Up Bookstore every Tuesday at noon till 4, usually some number like that in terms of the timing. Every Tuesday, again, another Tuesday day. And our staff has been trained by the Department of Health. And we send out information that people can get tested there. And it's wonderful because you don't have to have an appointment. You don't have to have any extra effort to participate in getting tested. And what I experienced, which was wonderful, was that the older people who come do not have an email, and you do need it in order to get the answer to your test. But guess what? Right next door is a phone store, and they have been working with the seniors to get an email on the spot. It's just a wonderful neighborhood example of what local businesses can do. In terms of some of the other COVID related, we did sign a letter asking that the fitness studios, the smaller ones, be allowed to open at 25% capacity. I know that the gyms have 33%, just to give you some small aspect of what we've been working on. Thanks to April Adams, this helicopter task force is quite active. I think you know that we had a New York meeting with elected officials on the community boards. Well, to the credit of April, we've now spoken to I don't know how many mayors in the state of New Jersey. And those of you who know me know that I've been to New Jersey like 5 times in my life. But these mayors are phenomenal and very clear on what the issues are. They have something similar. They don't have, you know, flying over Central Park, but they have flying over their city. And they're willing to work with us. And I want to thank Congressman Nadler because he's very close to the congressman representing the area. And Congressman Nadler is working on legislation with the member of Congress from that area. So between the FAA and the Eastern Regional Helicopter Council and all of the different stakeholders, we are going to have a soon with the folks in New Jersey. NYC and Company, to their credit, has listening carefully to what we're suggesting because they had some discount opportunities for Manhattanites to go to New Jersey and get on a helicopter and come to New York and fly over Central Park and take pictures and put them on Instagram. And that is not what we're looking for. So to the credit of NYC and Company, they are trying to figure out how that doesn't work. We have been talking to the news folks because obviously they should be flying. They have to cover the news, and same thing with NYPD, just to have their understanding of what a helicopter is used for. And it's really, they're very careful at the news stations not to fly over Central Park. They will do a long lens, camera lens, but they also have to cover the fires and the god awful disasters and news. But we have been in touch with them, just so you know. I want to mention just in terms of housing, congratulations to the community boards working on that and your forums. We, through Hallie Chu in our office, we have had a task force on this topic. And one of the issues that has come out of it, which is frustrating because we are way ahead of the governor, thanks to you, is that we have called every hotel, every that is vacant or not in use at the moment in the borough of Manhattan. And we have found those that are available for sale. And we are working with some of the nonprofit communities and people who work in affordable housing, like Ted Houghton, to see whether there's a possibility for sale. And you know what? They're selling, and they're selling to nonprofits. So we don't really need the governor's program. You can do it. We can do it on our own, and we can do it with the communities, and we can do it with input from you, and we can do it in a way that provides 100% affordable housing. So I just want to say that we are going to be writing to the governor indicating that we are quite capable of conversion. We're quite capable of doing it in a way that we have in the past. I know at least 3 programs right now. I don't want to mention them because they're not closed deals, but I can tell you there are 3 right now that are in negotiations in a positive way. So I just want to make that clear. The police reform toolkit, you know that you have a copy of past studies of police community relations. And I appreciate everyone who's thinking about this April 1st deadline. I just want to mention one tiny aspect of it. I've been to some of the listening sessions. I moderated some, the Manhattan South. I don't know that this proposal will be different than anything that you've come up with in the past. I just don't know what the mayor's going to come up with. But I will say that one suggestion, which has been in the press, is that the commanding officer of every precinct be selected by the community. And in the press, it just mentioned by the folks who participate in the community precinct council. I have to say they got me a little nervous, I'll be honest with you, because I didn't think that was enough community input. So it's my understanding that what is being considered, and you should be in touch with your community councils, is the community board, the community council, clergy, business, elected officials to pick the commander. Now, these commanders change every 2 years. Brooklyn is going to be the pilot. Now, whether this works or doesn't work, I don't know. NYPD is supposedly going to give us, the community, 3 selections of excellent possibilities, and then they will decide, they, meaning the community, but hopefully the community is clear is what you don't want is you, elected officials, community council, police council, clergy and business say we want person X, and then the PC says we want person Y. That would be like, what a waste of your time. So we're trying to figure this out, but I strongly suggest, maybe talk to your councils, maybe see what happens in Brooklyn. I just bring it up because it's definitely happening. In terms of open streets and open culture, great idea, but I just want to do one caveat. I think you agree that artists should be paid. And I want to say that the unions who represent artists have called me because they are concerned that if we have open streets and we have open culture, and open culture is great, we should make sure that the artists are paid. And of course, what amount is up for negotiations. We want, but what you don't want is, members who are so desperate. If there's one industry, God knows there are so many that have been hurt by this pandemic, but the artists in the general sense, musicians, artists, etc., have been hurt tremendously. They have zero work. And so I just want to be clear that be careful on that issue. I also want to just mention that schools, which came up. Two things. When we were briefed by the mayor on the schools, as you know, this clawback is huge. I appreciate Stephen Brown and others and Tammy bringing this up. This clawback is outrageous. It might be worse than resolutions from the community boards. We are working on a letter on this topic. It came up at hearings in the city council. Once we brought it up with the mayor, it was brought up by many others. It's got to stop. I also want to mention something that I support, which apparently the CDC does not, but I want to be clear. I'm concerned about sports, high school sports. I did participate in the Bronx Manhattan rally to support sports. And the reason I do that is a lot of these young people, as you know, get scholarships. So if you have no sports, you have no scholarship. And people who spoke were coaches and former college graduates or people in college who have gotten a free ride in some cases because they have participated in high school sports in New York City. They now will have no scholarship because they have nothing to gauge in terms of their work as a sports and an athlete. So how we go forward on that, I don't know. Apparently the CDC says sports are dangerous in terms of COVID, but so's not getting a scholarship. So I just want to bring that up as something that is challenging. We are in the midst of the CEC elections. As you know, these are done by the parents themselves. And so on February 22nd, from 6 to 7:30, we are hosting an informational session for parents again involved in the Community Education Council elections. And I hope that you too will advocate that people get involved with the CEC. I know there was a lot of discussion about the future of open meetings or those that are Zoom or not Zoom and so on and so forth with the community boards. I think we all need to look at, I support that discussion completely. I know a lot of people have said to me, Gail, I like to stay home and watch and participate. I don't need to go down to the community board. But what is the open meetings law? And I hope that our general counsel and certainly the law department will be looking at that to see what is the way in which that open meeting law can be revised to make sure that you can do what you want to do. You know that board applications are due February 22nd. And also you heard earlier when Vanessa talked about the budget that capital plans are also due at the end of February. Corky Lee died. These are two giants. Some of you knew him. He was a leader in Chinatown. I think if you look in the New York Times or other publications, you will see his life. He was one of my favorite people, and so was April Tyler. So I thought I would just quickly read what Barry wrote. He said about his friend April Tyler. I am barely able to be coherent. I cannot believe that April Tyler has left us. I am no longer hysterical like I was this morning, but I am not numb either. My brain recoils in horror every time it tries to confront the thought that I cannot pick up the phone and call April or receive her hug. I don't know how to describe my relationship. Colleague is too cold and professional, but friend does not capture the rich humanity and complexity. Mentor sounds too careerist, and neighbor does not begin to do it justice. Yutha Prince, who is the district manager, said, Shira, that we are a family. April was my family. She was someone I looked up to, someone who taught me about housing, taught me about life, taught me about character, integrity, unafraid to be vulnerable and accept and appreciate vulnerability in others, a leader, a worker, a supporter, a truth teller. I always saw her stand up for what she thought was right without behaving unreasonably, even when it cost her personally. And it goes on and on and on, but I just want to close with April Tyler. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Borough President. Nilsa is back on. I don't know if we can unmute her.
And there are 2 members of the city council here. I assume you know that.
Yes. Okay. I was checking. I know that Ben Kalos is on. Who?
And so is Mark Levine.
Okay.
Nilsa is unmuted and should be able to speak.
Okay, I guess she's still having issues. Council members report. Councilmember Kalos.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for being on here for so long. I just want to join the borough president and everybody in remembering April Tyler. I got to meet her first when we were talking about removing voids from residential districts up in her district. We went around all the boroughs, and she was so incredibly intelligent and thoughtful. And when we were fixing
Hi, good morning.
Law
I'm
64,
just give me
she
one
was
second.
somebody who was incredibly helpful in helping me understand the unintended impact on HDFCs. And she was just such a strong advocate for the HDFCs. And losing her is a blow to the city, to the community board, and to the HDFC coalition, and to just everyone. And we need more April Tylers on community boards. So just, I need to share that and just thank you. I want to also just take a moment to thank the borough president, Senator Kruger. I see Russell Squire on here for Community Board 8 because we all work together. We've been working together since I got elected on the Eastside Task Force for Homeless Outreach and Services. The only way through this homeless crisis is to build more services in the neighborhood. We've opened housing for women and children across the street from where I live. We've opened a new food pantry a block and a half from where I live. And now we're opening a new shelter 2 blocks from where I live. The Community Board 8 committee voted unanimously in favor of a shelter. The Community Board 8 voted 46 to 1 in support of a shelter. I've been told that this has never happened before in anyone's memory. If though I know people on this call could correct me if it is wrong. And I think that's the kind of city I want to live in, where we are actively fighting to build more services for the homeless and actually welcoming them. No fuss, no muss. These people are welcome and they're welcome to stay. So I just want to thank CB8 for an amazing vote, the borough president and Senator Kruger. And I couldn't have hoped for a better birthday present because I actually turned 40 on February 5th. And that was one of the things we were able to get done before that birthday. And I want to thank all the people who joined us for First Friday. If you don't know about it, every month I meet with constituents from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. talk about whatever they want. And it turns out when you turn 40, everyone's nice to you on these calls. If you're a community board chair, you know that people aren't always nice to the person running the meeting. So I've decided I'm going to tell people it's my birthday every single First Friday. We also finally announced a new biotech hub on the Upper East Side. It's something we started negotiating on my first day, New Year's Day, 2014 with Rockefeller University. It's going to have $9 million in city funding. It's going to be 30,000 square feet of biotech space. I also have to thank CB11, CB8, Congressmember Carol Maloney. We worked together on something called the East River Esplanade. We've worked with Councilmember Diana Ayala, Assemblymember Robert Rodriguez, of course, the borough president. And actually, this goes back to Jesus when he was on the community board district manager and representing Gail. but we've secured another $284 million for the Esplanade from 50th Street all the way up to 125th. We're now up to $874 million to rebuild a resilient waterfront. We just opened a new library on Roosevelt Island with $7 million, with 1.7 from the City Council. And I will tell you, without the borough president, without my office, DDC was never going to start the work. Just because you get the money doesn't mean it gets done. This was initially funded back in 2012, so 9 years, but we did it. We've been fighting to open the Queensboro Bridge with a dedicated bike lane to cross boroughs, and I know that CB8 and CB6 have passed resolutions in support. We've been fighting for a while, then Gail Brewer showed up and walked across the bridge with us, and the mayor decided to fund it. So not only is it going to happen for Queensboro, it also happened for the Brooklyn Bridge. I saw Tammy waving her hand on that, so that's a big deal. It's going to make the Brooklyn Bridge a lot safer without having conflicts between pedestrians, cyclists, and the street vendors. The other piece is one way we can deal with a lot of what's been going on is making sure every youth has a job. And so there's something called summer youth employment. Last year, they cut it to 35,000 and 35,000 slots for 100,000 kids, and things went wrong. The borough president joined me and Jamani Williams for a summer youth employment rally. I now carry legislation that was previously introduced by Congressmember Richie Torres to guarantee every single child a summer youth job. We'd love all the community boards to pass resolutions in support of this. It is a big deal. It will do a lot to help kids this summer. We got the mayor to agree to 70,000 slots, but we want more. We are also working with the borough president. I want to thank April Adams. We've been having monthly meetings with a number of the community boards on how to find more primary poll sites for early voting. I also want to thank Barry Weinberg for that. And so we hope to be connecting with you, I guess, at the next borough board as we try to find new sites. But please feel free to touch base with policy@benkalos.com if you have places that you'd like to turn into early voting sites. And last but not least, if you are free this Sunday and you want an even longer report from me, please join us for our State of the District. It's going to be Sunday, February 21st at 12:30. You can RSVP at benkalos.com. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Is Councilmember Levine still on? Okay, because I don't see him on our attendee list right now. Okay, so we're going to try one last time to unmute Nycha Arama. Nycha, can you unmute? Okay, doesn't seem like it's, yay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh my Lord Jesus. No, hi. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry that, I usually log in at 8:30 and then I'm on the train, so I got cut off. But I just wanted to thank all the boards for all their work and coordinating, and including Community Board 11 in such great work through the district. And I want to thank Rosie and Gail and everyone for the continued support. We can't do it without you. And I just wanted to reiterate that on March 31st, we're looking to have a Know Your Rights Forum. And so I wanted also to offer my condolences in the passing of April. She did a fabulous job in the last housing event, and her knowledge and expertise and willingness to assist will be missed. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for being patient with my multiple attempts to try to get onto the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nycha. So if anyone else has any comments, I think this is going to be the first time since I've been director that we're going to end a meeting before 11 a.m. Something to strive for. Yes, there goes all the thumbs up. So if anyone has any last minute comments, let's try to get them in before 11 a.m. And if not, we could just move forward. If someone has a motion to adjourn this meeting. Oh, hold it. There he goes. Here is Council Member Mark Levine.
Well, thank you so much, Rosie. I apologize. We have multiple hearings in the city council right now, and I'll be very brief because I know you're late. But I'll just report that I'm coming from a hearing of the Cultural Affairs Committee, where they were hearing my bill, Intro 2048, that would create a commission to work out location and design for a memorial to essential workers who have died of COVID-19. And this happened after 9/11. We created a commission to do exactly this. And the time is now to start to find a way to honor the thousands of New Yorkers who have been out there caring for us as healthcare workers, keeping us moving as transit workers, keeping us fed as supermarket workers, keeping us safe in fire departments and ambulances, and so much more. These heroes have been exposed to this virus over the last year, and unfortunately, many have succumbed to it. We don't know the exact number, but it's almost certainly in the thousands. And so our legislation, which the hearing is ongoing right now, would create a commission that includes membership of 2 essential workers and 2 relevant commissioners of city agencies and other appointees by the mayor and city council. Just very briefly on COVID, because there's some breaking news on that front as well. We're really in a race between vaccination and the variants. And most of us are focused on the problems with vaccination, which need a lot of attention. But I fear that we're taking our eye off the ongoing daily risk out there with 4,000 new cases a day on average in New York City, a rising number of variants. And as an indication of that risk, just in the last few minutes, the city's health department has updated guidance on masks and is now recommending that every New Yorker double mask. And their preference is that you have a disposable mask, which is kind of the paper surgical mask, with a second mask on top that would be a cloth mask. This is the way to get the best fit. But for older New Yorkers and those at high risk, they're actually recommending a KN95 mask. They're also recommending that for people who live with or care for those high-risk individuals. And this is a level below the full N95 mask, which is what you see kind of in the medical setting, which is, it's notable because it has 2 bands behind the back of your head. So a KN95 is a little bit less than that. I just posted on Twitter, and you can find elsewhere, they have a nice PDF graphic, which really explains how to correctly do double masking so you have a good fit, because if you don't have a good fit, it kind of defeats the purpose. I think I'll leave it there because it's late. But again, our message today is, while we fight to get everyone vaccinated, while we fight to have an easier vaccination program, we did a hearing on this yesterday. We want the website fixed. We want door-to-door outreach. We want door-to-door vaccination. We want more vaccination done in senior centers and Nycha community centers. We're going to continue that fight. We also want to protect ourselves from the ongoing threat of COVID-19 at a time when the variants are here and they're scary, and we have to keep each other safe. Thank you so much, Rosie, and thank you, Borough President.
Thank you, Council Member. So we are still toward our record of ending a meeting before 11. Unless anyone has something else to say, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I hear the
Rosie.
ayes?
Aye.
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 Anyone
Rosie, good
against?
job.
Thank you. Anyone abstaining? Anyone wants to stay in this meeting for another hour? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is officially adjourned, and thank you, Madam Borough President.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.